So thank you for taking the time to chat with me today. I'm really excited to have you on, Diana. I don't even remember how we crossed paths on Twitter. Someone must have retweeted you that I know, probably through the D&D circles, but I just remember seeing a tweet from you like, oh, she seems awesome, follow, and then like we started chatting online.
Yeah, I don't really remember what it was specifically, but yeah, I see you around the proverbial block.
Yes, these here internets, as it were. And so I guess let's start by, for those of my listeners who may not know you or what you do, maybe give like a brief introduction to the kind of work you do and like where they may know you around the internet.
Okay, so I'm Diana. I mean, you might recognize the name Super Dylan, which means nothing. It has no affiliation to anything whatsoever. It's just the name that I go by on the internet. You might know that I make silly D&D mockery videos on TikTok. Sometimes I occasionally throw in an educational one on YouTube, but pretty much I'm here for the sillies. And then, occasionally making something real.
Excellent. That's the strongest and best intro I've ever heard. Good job.
Thank you.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about your history with D&D. Obviously, you wrote a campaign setting, Neverland, which we'll get into the details of in a little bit. But sure. I'm curious, have you always been a D&D player? Have you played since you were younger? Is it something you discovered later? How did you kind of get involved with D&D?
I love answering this question because a lot of people ask it. And the truth is that, no, I wasn't always a D&D player. Basically, my history with gaming boils down to like a couple interactions I had at my local library when I was like a little on the cusp of tweendom. And I was a little nerdy kid. I hung out at the library every weekend in their gaming room that they had in like the kids/young adult section. And at the time, my big obsession was like Pokemon cards. That was like my thing, was Pokemon cards. As Pokemon cards started to fade into Magic the Gathering, and that sort of took over the scene, is when like people stopped, like boys stopped wanting me to be in there and playing it. Right. And something that also came into the gaming area at that time was Dungeons and Dragons. I saw that the two of them kind of grew in popularity around the same time in that area. So I was like, well, these boys, I'm going to continue to play Pokemon. And nobody else did, so I just had Pokemon cards after that. So I was reluctant to trust anything related to D&D as a teen, and kind of forgot about it for a while. What did happen was that around, the 9th grade, I was, of course, very brooding and tortured. I was very sad for mysterious reasons that you wouldn't understand. And so I became friends with the Goths, and the Goths all played a little game called Vampire the Masquerade.
Yes.
So that game, and subsequently like just about every storyteller system game, was my cup of tea for all of those years thereafter. And then later on, after I had spent all this time playing it, and then 5th edition came out, and I was like, oh wait, screw it, this isn't, just because some dudes told me I couldn't play this game when I was young doesn't mean I listen to them anymore. So that was kind of how I transitioned into D&D from other role-playing games.
Amazing. So it sounds like you have a variety of experience with different role-playing games. When I was growing up, it was mostly just D&D. I got into it around the 3.5 edition, 3.5. And then when 4.0 was going to come out and Pathfinder was starting to exist, we shifted a lot of my friend group to Pathfinder. And then when 5th edition came out, we shifted back to 5th edition, and now we kind of go back and forth. I've had a few successful vampire games. None of them have ever seen their way to completion, which is a bummer. I mostly played them as an adult. I tended to play Tremere just because. But I loved a lot of the White Wolf sets because they focused more on role play than mechanics, like a lot of D&D tended to.
Yeah. Which really affected how I decided to play D&D once I did show up in D&D. Which, you know, in the beginning got me into a little bit of trouble. But then when I started DMing and I got to say, well, if you don't like it, tough. We're playing make-believe. I'm going to have fun. Then, you know, I took more control over it and it became mine. And it's sort of like a hybrid of storyteller meets D&D.
Yeah, I think that tends to be the way I lean now more in the games that I play. Like growing up, there was a lot of murder hoboing, a lot of murder hallways, a lot of just combat in my old games when I was younger. But I feel like as an adult now, a lot of folks want to lean more into storytelling because also a lot of my friends who used to just create combat situations now want to tell a story or adapt a story. And so that's been really cool to see that kind of growth in the scene.
I just never understood that because I also played a lot of like war games, like strategy games. Mm-hmm. So that need is filled already. Like the combat sim is, I have that in my, I can go ahead and I can play that when I feel bloodthirsty. But if I really like want to enjoy a character and like a story and play role playing, like that, I'm not gonna. I don't need it to be a combat sim because I have one of those. It's on the shelf.
Yeah.
Easy
exactly.
peasy. Yeah.
I think also for me, that shift came from playing more narrative-driven video games too. Like the Mass Effect series, which is one of my favorites, is like it's all story and relationships, and so like seeing more of that. And also, you know, I've been queer my whole life, but kind of coming to the realization of how queer I was and finding my bisexuality as I got older. Also, I think opened up wanting to explore relationships and stories. Which is a thing that I think as a young boy who didn't know what he wanted, but cried a lot and was very emotional, I was like, is there something wrong with me? The other boys don't act like me. I don't understand. You know, and as you get older, you kind of tend to grow past the nonsense that you deal with in high school and realize, oh, no, they were just assholes. I'm fine.
Yeah. They, you know, and it's, you, if anything, just feel bad for them because somebody taught them that they had to shut that down. It's not like they don't have it. Like they're a human being, so they've got it somewhere. They're just shutting it down because somebody told them they had to, and that sucks. That sucks.
It does suck
so much.
So let's talk a little bit about Neverland, the Impossible Island, and your love of Peter Pan and the Lost Boys and all of the things relating to Neverland. So why this setting? Why this area? Have you always loved Peter Pan and the story of Peter Pan? Is this something that you're just a giant fan of?
Yeah, I wish, because it would be comical if I had all of the things right here so I could just like show you the cataloging of how serious my Peter Pan issue is. So basically, I don't really know how this came about exactly, but it's just something about the way that this story made me realize that it wasn't what I thought it was about. So, like, you know, I was obsessed with it as a kid because I was obsessed with the Mary Martin, you know, musical. So just as a little kid, I loved Mary Martin. I was like, I you know, I loved that whole show in all of its problematic weirdness. So,
yeah.
But I loved the musical. I loved the puppet show. I loved the whole thing. And then, you know, you go a few years and you don't think about that anymore because you're a teenager. And as previously stated, you're brooding and you're sad for mysterious reasons. And then someday I like wandered into my dad's office, which was where our bookshelf was, and it had all my childhood books on it. So I walk in there and I take the old copy of Peter Pan, the book, the novel off the shelf that I had never read as a kid. I had just like colored in all the pages with like ugly black marker because it's a full novel and somebody gave it to me when I was like 4. But I sat down and I was like, oh, this book looks kind of interesting, actually. The art was like kind of cool. And now I'm, you know, an edgy teenager and I want to see what that's about. So I sat down and I read this whole book in one sitting. And I was like, this isn't what I thought it was about at all. And something about that just stuck with me, and I just couldn't get it out of my head. I couldn't get J.M. Barrie's voice out of my head. He has a very distinct author voice that, like, after I read the book, I start talking like him for a few days. Like, I can't, he's just got a very, like, very, very distinct voice. And I couldn't stop thinking about it, so I read it over and over again. And at this point, I'm like in a weird place as a teenager because I'm queer and I'm like sort of out, but not really. And I'm having panic attacks about it all the time because, you know, there's no way for me to know for sure what, you know, like, I don't know, whatever it was that I was going through in my head at that point in time. And maybe it's a massive amount of projection. I'm sure there's a level of it there, but I can't help but see the queer experience like just screaming at me through J.M. Barrie's words. Like, what I always say is that if people always ask that like silly fun question, like if you could have a seance and bring one dead like popular culture figure back to have a conversation, would hands down be him. I'd be like, current situation, quick explanation, anything you want to tell me? Can you tell me anything? Any secrets you're just dying to get out? Because something here is so relatable to me. So that is why it stuck. So that is why it's been this thing where, I mean, it's one of those things where, you know, you hit a certain age and everybody knows what your favorite thing is. So that's the gift you get every time a thing happens, you get. So for me, it's like Peter Pan. You know, my old roommate, painted me pictures of Peter Pan, and people buy me, oh, hey, I saw this book that's got, you know. So the collection continues to grow. And one day I was doing our podcast, Femsplained, and I did an episode where it was my turn to be the Femsplainer, and I chose Peter Pan. And after that conversation, my co-host and best friend was like, okay, so I'm seeing that the two things you care about most in the world are Peter Pan and role-playing games. So, like, why haven't you just married those things together yet? And it was like, how did I not think of this before? Because I think about those two things nonstop and have for a decade apiece. So how did I not think to just put them together? And as soon as she said that, it was like, I just couldn't think about anything else until I did it. So
that's amazing. That's awesome. And it's funny too, like, something that could be so obvious to you, you just can't see right in front of you. My original first podcast that I ever had was a music review show that I did with two co-hosts. And at the time when we created it, it's now on hiatus. One of my co-hosts said to me, because I've been a music nerd my whole life, I'm a DJ, and I've also loved podcasting since I discovered it, you know, and old radio shows and old radio plays. And he was like, so you love podcasts and you love music, why aren't we making a music podcast? Why haven't we done that yet? And it's just like, oh, sure, of course, that makes total sense. And then, like, I started this show just because I liked other chat shows that I'd heard and went, well, I have the equipment and I'm selfish, so I'm just going to start my own and we'll see how it goes. And, you know, now we're on episode 151, so clearly I'm doing something right. Or at least no one stopped me yet.
Right.
But I love the idea of doing a setting in Neverland for D&D, just because there have been so many different interpretations of Peter Pan, from the musical to Disney's version to, even Hook and, the book, of course.
Yeah. We don't talk about the mouse. That one didn't, yeah. the mouse, that didn't happen.
That didn't happen.
Yeah. They were like, this book's pretty racist. Let's make it more racist. Yeah. The mouse is... And then you know what? Can I just go off about the mouse for a second?
Yes, please.
Because not only did they see the racism in that book, which is 100% J.M. Barrie's fault, and say, let's turn the heat up on that and make it even worse by a lot. Then they just changed the character of Peter Pan. They made him annoyed by girls. They made him hate girls, which is precisely the opposite of the entire point of Peter Pan, is that he is envious and jealous of girls, and he wants to be more like them. And like, he's resentful about the fact that if he ages, he has to become a man, because that's horrible, and instead wants to be more like Wendy and have a name like hers and stuff like that. That there's so much against the idea of Peter hating or being annoyed by women. So the fact that the second he meets Wendy in the Disney version, he's like, ugh, girls. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so stupid. Anyway, so we don't like to talk about the mouse.
That's fair. Do you have a preferred version of a film version of Peter Pan?
I sure do. I have very strong feelings about it too. The 2003 live action with Jeremy Sumpter and Jason Isaacs is probably it's made so to the spirit of the novel. There are some things that have been cut for time and stuff like that, but the entire spirit, the characters are pretty genuine to how they're described, and it's a pretty accurate retelling of the story, and it's just really good to look at as well. And then I actually think that Hook, even though Hook is not something that J.M. Barrie ever wrote down, they kept the spirit of the characters alive so very well that to me it's canon. It might as well. It honored the story that he wrote very much so.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that for me, the reason I think Hook works really well is because it doesn't take itself too seriously, but there are still those moments of drama and growth, and these moments with Peter. Also, I'm a huge Robin Williams fan, so for me, it's one of his greatest movies. And a lot of people like to downplay Hook because it was so cheesy, and for me, it's like, but the book has cheesy moments, and like the world thrives on this kind of magic and nonsense. Like, what's wrong with it being cheesy?
Absolutely. Well, that was the thing that J.M. Barrie set out to do, which is why it's so perfect for Robin Williams, because Robin Williams tells adult stories that could be enjoyable for a kid, and that's what J.M. Barrie did as well. He was telling a story that he wanted adults to appreciate, but he told it through the lens of a kid's book. And that's a very Robin Williams thing to do. It would have been his birthday today, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And it just feels right that we're talking about him, actually.
Yes, I would agree.
Yeah, he's the perfect person to have portrayed a character like Peter Pan, who is sad, but is also joyful and jovial and boyish and foolish and adventurous and silly and all of that. So, yeah.
And so let's talk a little bit about the creating of Neverland, the Impossible Island. When creating something like that, had you written or made any mock-up campaigns before that, like even for your own entertainment? Had you done any of that kind of writing, or was this like your first time really putting something like that together?
So I've never, it's hard to say that I've done anything like this before. I have been exclusively a homebrew chick prior to writing that, because of the aforementioned issues I have with playing D&D like it's a like a wargaming sim or whatever. So
Right.
I've always done homebrews. I've also, I don't know, just like being able to be flexible and make stuff up on the fly.
Sure.
And in the past, I've played with, people who have, say, books memorized and will call you on things if you don't know where certain places are or whatever.
Yeah.
Things like that. So I just scrap all that. I homebrew every place that I have my game set in, with exceptions if I'm gaming. If I'm doing a private for hire, or if I'm doing a convention and somebody is requesting a module or whatever. But for fun games, my home games, everything's homebrewed. So I've done that before, and hypothetically, I do write things down. But I've never really put the organizational thought into and tested it out enough to write it down. In fact, what I did with this first is we played a completely, because this is just how my brain works, I guess. We played a completely improv. I didn't write a thing down, and I just, based on what I feel and know about Neverland, we played a couple of sessions of a game where I just rolled with it and made it up on the fly. And I kept a lot of that. I just kind of, reworked it so that it made more sense. But that really helped me come up with most of it, to be honest.
But that's awesome. I think the ability to be able to use your imagination and dive in that way is something that's super important to playing D&D, especially now, especially when, like you were saying, you bounce off of some of the pre-created modules. I mean, I know a lot of the D&D official Wizards of the Coast stuff can be very strict because they are designed for a new DM to kind of like jump in and follow the book to run a game.
Oh, yeah. No criticism on them for that. Yeah, absolutely.
But the fact that you were able to dive in with players that you trust and kind of just see what happens and then use that as inspiration, I think is really brilliant.
Oh, yeah, that was really great. And then once I really wrote it down, then we had a real play test where it was on purpose. Right. So it was those were the two kind of stages. And honestly, I don't know how anybody else does it, but I would do it again that way. Because that works for me, I guess.
Well, and that leads into a follow-up question that I wanted to ask. Now that this exists and it's out in the world, do you have the next thing you want to do? Do you have other ideas? Whether it's in Neverland as like a sequel to this, or is it a totally different location altogether?
Okay, so I do have a new thing that is not D&D related. That is its own completely new thing. I'm not going to say too much because I promised that Patreon patrons would get the first spiel about it.
Sure, that's fair.
But basically, I do have a new game entirely planned based on a old World of Darkness game that was hacked up and basically made into something completely new from years ago that just like kind of struck me in the middle of the night, and I was like, we should do that on purpose. That's kind of what all this is like all the weird like homebrewy stuff that I've come up with on the fly. I want to do it on purpose and with intention. So So that is the next thing. I am not going to really get started on that until two things happen that are almost done. One being that I am releasing a D10 conversion insert to go with Neverland, so that if you want to play it with the storyteller system, you can.
That's
and
amazing.
Then after that's done, I am going to enable it for hardcover, because like a bunch of people have asked me to make it available for print, so I'm going to release it as a printable version. And that will be it. That's all. I just gotta make sure that that's done, and then once that's done, I am considering Neverland a complete story, and I'm going to move on to the next thing.
Well, that's awesome. I think that the fact that you have a clear path for this and that you were able to create it and then also already have ideas for what you want to do next is really exciting. I have a question as far as being a D&D player and a tabletop player. You obviously DM. You also obviously have played characters in the past and been part of other campaigns. Do you prefer one to the other, especially someone who's written a campaign? Do you prefer to DM over being a player, or do you like both and it just depends?
Okay, so I like both. If you had asked me this question like a year ago or any time before that, I would have said DMing 100% all the time forever. And it's not untrue. It's just that opinion that I held was born out of the fact that my experiences with many groups as a player were so bad that
Right.
I prefer being in the so-called driver's seat, because I can control a little bit more about what is happening. Mm-hmm. And I can make the experience something that doesn't make me want to rage quit the world. So prior to that, and really all that changed is that I stumbled upon tabletop Twitter, which gets a bad rap for some things sometimes, but at the very least is full of a lot of people who also don't like sexism, which I jive with a lot.
I'm on board with that.
Yeah, so it's just very, very simply put, a place where I've found a lot more experiences where I can be a player and not worry that someone's going to assault my character, generally speaking.
Right.
I know that things happen, but it's just been, I've had more good experiences from the other side of the GM screen since I've found more like-minded people.
I think we're finally getting to a place technology-wise where it's much easier to play online. Like with systems like Roll20 and stuff, it's gotten a lot easier to connect with people and play online. I've been playing with the same group of 5 or 6 people since I was in high school, and now the only difference is most of us don't live in the same state anymore, but we still can continue to play because of how far technology has come. But I still feel like, and I'm curious your thoughts, since tech has taken a long leap with a lot of this, do you prefer to play, I mean, obviously during the COVID times where now you can't be in person, obviously, but when you could, did you have a preference over in person or virtually? Because I feel like I connect better to the players and the DM when I'm in the room with them. I like playing online, but I feel like there's a chemistry in personal space that there just isn't online.
Yeah, I mean, I think that streaming and playing online sort of adds an air of unspoken professionalism to people, which makes the game in some ways way more fun, but does definitely temper people's attitudes. You're not going to laugh and go on a 15-minute tangent like you might in a home game. And I both love that and don't love that. So I don't know what I know is that my private home games, I don't really love playing a private game over the internet. In fact, my home game, we kind of tried to transition to the internet and we just hated it so much, even though I stream games all the time over the internet and it never bothers me, but for some reason it just killed our vibe. And we've been playing together for almost 4 years now in our campaign, and I miss that so much. I mean, like, I think the thing I miss the most is, like, you're sitting next to someone and something happens, there's a reveal, or you kill someone that took you 5 hours to kill, or like you've discovered the big secret, or a big plot twist happens or whatever, and you just do that thing where you like collapse into the person next to you and like just start like shaking them or like whatever, like the thing, you just kind of have to, I don't know. I'm a very tactile, very, very affectionate person, and I miss that kind of like camaraderie very much. It's been a really weird couple of months for me.
Yeah, I get that. No, I'm the same way. I have a 5e campaign that I was running, or not I was running, but I was in, that a friend of mine was running, and we played in person once a month for a while, and it was great. And I felt a connection to those players that I hadn't felt with players in a while. And now we, over the last 3 or 4 months or however long it's been, I've been trying to transition it to online. And it's just been really slow going because we're just so attached to that in-person experience and connecting with those folks. Like, I don't always play flirty characters, but in this one campaign, I am playing a character who is very flirty and flirts with one of the other characters. And I don't feel that same connection over the internet. And I think it's something to do with being in the space with that person and feeling their energy as that character. It just allows you to improvise in a way that I think is harder to do through a webcam and over the internet.
I also think it's easier to pick up on when somebody is catching the improv thread you're sewing too.
Yeah.
Or at least it is for me. Like if somebody is dropping a hint that they like want to push something in a direction, it's hard with like internet delays and like, were you looking at that particular part of the screen? Like right there, like, did you get what I'm trying to say here? I don't know. There's a lot that can be lost. But I'm very thankful for it because the hobby is not gone to us during this time.
Correct.
Yeah. And so whatever criticisms I have are not important because at least we get to play.
For sure.
Yeah.
I totally get that. When playing D&D, especially as a GM, do you prefer newer players who are like just excited to play and maybe know less, or do you like seasoned players? Do you like to mix it up? Do you have a preference, or are you just kind of like come one, come all?
I'm very come one, come all. I do love teaching people. That's kind of how my current home game is born out of. If you've never heard me tell this story before, it is my favorite story because they are a group of boys who all met each other through CrossFit, and they heard about D&D because Joe Manganiello talked about it on and so my little CrossFit babies, my little beefcakes, went on Reddit and found me while I was looking for games, having just moved to the borough, and they kind of scooped me up as their guide, and it was lovely, absolutely lovely, teaching them how to play because they just took to it so naturally, and also they were not bothered by the fact that I said we're making the rules up, at certain points where no, we're just not going to do that. So lots of things were great about that. I love teaching new players. I don't mind any players of any prior knowledge whatsoever, as long as they are able to roll with my punches. If they are not, and they really need things to be completely by the book and don't really want to veer from the story, if they're a paying customer, I will totally run you a by the book module. I will absolutely do that for you, and I will make it great. But if we're playing for fun and that's your cup of tea, it's not mine, so I'm not going to have a good time. So that's kind of where it's at.
I get that. I mean, I think I am someone who personally can't stand rules lawyering, and like it's actually why I stopped playing a lot of the Star Wars systems. I love Star Wars. I love, even with how the movies have gone, and you know, some things are better than others. I love that world and I love that universe. But every time, there were a few friends of mine who I love with my whole heart, but I would play with them and I would want to engage with the world of Star Wars in a way that might affect the established canon, and they would shut me down, or they would say, you can't do that, or you don't have access to this, or like, as a Jedi, you don't have access to these powers. And it's just, a lot of it was just because they didn't want to change the world that they love so much, and it bums me out, because we're clearly existing in a thing that's its own thing, and for you to rules lawyer me about a planet, or a race, or a character, or whatever, a mechanic, it's like, but I just want to do a cool thing. Can't I do a cool thing? Like, what's the issue? And that drives me crazy to no end.
Yeah. That's not my favorite environment.
Yeah. And it's a shame because it's a system that I liked playing in. There have been better versions of it. And I think it just depends on the DM and the people I'm playing with.
Yeah, of course it does. Yeah.
So, but that said, there have been a lot of different campaigns that I've been a part of, and some have been more fun than others. I remember I was a bard in D&D, and because I'm a music nerd, instead of singing songs, because I'm not a great singer, I would play songs, and my song that I would use for Inspire Courage was Never Gonna Give You Up by Rick Astley, and so I'd play it every 5 minutes on my MP3 player whenever we got into a fight, which was always fun. Have there been any like fun or crazy things that you've been able to incorporate into a game that maybe is outside the norm for D&D campaign that you really love doing?
Well, similarly in that vein, my favorite NPC, who is sort of my traveling PC as well, Shendry, what she is a bard who plays the hurdy-gurdy, but she doesn't play it well. She makes the most horrible sounds you can ever imagine, and inflicts damage with the horribleness of the bad music.
That's amazing.
And so there is on YouTube, if you search hurdy-gurdy careless whisper, there is a careless whisper cover on the hurdy-gurdy, and no disrespect to the person who made this video, but it is the most horrible sound I've ever heard. It is not made for that instrument, and it is not good to hear. So I would play that whenever Shendry would do something on the battlefield. And
that's amazing.
So that's my fun bard story.
Amazing. I have a question now. Leaning away from D&D, I assume you were involved in other nerdy pursuits as well. Are there other things that you are really passionate about that you don't plan on writing for and that you just enjoy in life? Video games, movies, TV?
Yeah, I have a real problem about the Dragon Age series. I have a real issue.
Yes.
I have a real problem. It's so bad. I like, it is the worst. I don't know what happened to me in my brain. Like, I've never gotten like this over another video game. Like, it just has not happened. But any of those 3 games, I can play them. It would seem infinitely. There does not seem to be an end to which I can consume them. And the only real thing I do in terms of content creation for that is writing fan fiction sometimes, which has seemed to have come to an end, which is good for everyone because it's been not good when it happens. But I do like to theorize. I do like to imagine scenarios, think about lore that has not been confirmed nor denied, because I follow the creators of that game very closely to see if they ever do confirm or deny these things. So that is, that's my other big thing. It's something that I don't really see myself ever creating anything for because, and there is also already a very good tabletop RPG for it. But it is something that I will never stop being way too into.
I get that. I mean, I'm wearing a shirt for my podcast Reignite, which is a Mass Effect themed podcast that we are currently in our third season playing the third game. And so as you feel with Dragon Age, I feel the same way about the space version, Mass Effect.
Space Dragon Age, yes.
Space Dragon Age, yes. And so I've been obsessed with that, so I get that. I'm actually, for my Twitch channel, I'm replaying Dragon Age Inquisition, a game I never finished the first time I played it, so I'm making my way through it again. And I'm loving it so far. I remember really strongly disliking the first two games, but I don't know if it was just because I wasn't used to the mechanics. I mean, for me, since Mass Effect came first, I went into Dragon Age Origins expecting fantasy Mass Effect, and it's not it's not the same thing.
No.
There are similarities, but like I think I bounced off it because of that. That said, I'm enjoying Inquisition so much, I do want to revisit those games. But I'm loving Inquisition. I just did the ball where you meet Morgan for the first time as the character, but she, of course, has been in the other games. And so that was really fun, and I got to do that on stream, and I wasn't expecting her to be in the game, so that was a fun reveal. What I like about those kinds of fantasy games that they really, especially through the relationships, find a way to bring you in. It was like what I was talking about before, is my favorite D&D campaigns are that ones that mirror that. And so I totally get your obsession with those games because BioWare has a great way of crafting narratives that sometimes feel more important than the pressing buttons to kill stuff.
Yeah. The first time that I played Origins, which was the first video game I played in a long time. When I was growing up, I had a Sega Genesis. And then that outlived its shelf life or got sold or something, whatever happened to it. From then on, we didn't have another one. We didn't get another video game console, and then I moved out and could not afford a video game console for many years, and then I don't know, one day got an Xbox 360, got Skyrim, which I thought was cool. I would later become weirdly attached to it, but not because I loved it really, but because you could just play it for so long. It really is not a game that gets you hooked. It's just like it's just Candy Crush. It's Candy Crush with like dark like themes. You just get kind of before you know it, you've played for 17 hours. So I liked that game just fine. And then I was at work at night one night, and it was a very slow night where we were working, and a girl came up to me and sat down next to me who I had not talked to before, and she was like, "You look like you would like elves and stuff." And I was like, "Yeah, I do." She was like, "Well, anyway, let's get out of here and play this video game." And I was like, "Okay." So I brought my coworker home with me, which was a very surprising move on my part. And we played. It was a very odd choice for her. I don't really know if she looks back on this with fond memories, because I don't think I would if I were her. But she just came to my apartment, handed me Dragon Age Origins, and then watched me play it for like 4 hours or something like that. I mean, while drinking wine. I gave her wine because I'm not a monster, but like obviously. It was a very weird experience, because then she just went home and she left the video game. It was very nice of her, but very peculiar. Anyway, fast forward to about 4 days later, the credits are rolling, and I am just on my couch crying hysterically. And I'm just like, I don't know, something just clicked in me. I was like, you can do this video. Like, didn't know that was an option in video games, because the last thing I played was a side scroller. So I just did not know that you could tell this kind of a story.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of astonishing what they've accomplished, and we will eventually supposedly get a Dragon Age 4, but I'll believe that when I actually see more than a title screen.
Oh, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. We will... if that doesn't happen, then I'm just going to have to learn code. It's going to be a 10-year-long adventure, and I don't know how I'm going to pull it off, but like it will have to. That's what's going to make me roll up my sleeves is if we don't get that.
Yeah, I'm hoping that BioWare in the nearest future will remaster both the Mass Effect trilogy and the Dragon Age trilogy, just because I feel like those games are kind of timeless because they were crafted so well that even if certain systems haven't aged well, the game's narratives as a whole, while not perfect, especially from a queer perspective, but a lot of it has aged well as far as storytelling and narrative. And so I'm hoping that we'll get newer versions so more people can experience them. Also, I feel like if they remastered those games for modern consoles, everyone would buy them. They're infamous series.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, they would.
It's like, is BioWare afraid of money? Like, that's what I don't understand.
Do you know
at this point.
How many times they've released Skyrim with just like one little tweak and people buy that shit over and over again? People would absolutely repurchase all of those games. Me, front of the line.
Same. Absolutely front of the line. Shifting back to D&D a little bit, are there any systems that you have not tried but you've always been interested in within the tabletop sphere, or have you pretty much dabbled in a little bit of everything?
Oh my god, I have not dabbled in everything. No, there are tons that I haven't tried, especially newer releases that I haven't gotten a chance to try. And I haven't played the Star Wars games, which I hear good things about. And there's so many. So sure. there's definitely a ton that I haven't tried yet.
Is there another world? I know you said you're working on something, but is there another pre-existing world that if you had endless time and resources, you would want to craft a story for or craft a D&D module for?
Oh yeah. And I've brought this up to other people because I may not have the time for it, but I need somebody to make it so that I can have it. So I've been dropping hints into every RPG writer's in basket about making a Wonderland setting, like a big, like I need a full. There have been a couple like one-shot adventures written for Wonderland, but I need like Neverland style. I need the entire system written out because one, it's also in the public domain, and two, it would be wild. It would be absolutely wild. You know how much D&D players love like campaigns that involve drugs and like and like unpredictable effects. Think of how many random effects tables you could put in a Wonderland-based setting.
Yeah.
There could be one on every page. It would, and I don't know, those are just things that really tickle me in RPGs, so I would love to see it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like what's really interesting about tabletop gaming, and especially pen and paper RPGs, is that it feels like you could adapt anything. Like, I had a friend who was working on a Downton Abbey style RPG where some people play the rich folks, some people play the servants, and like it's just like a social thing with not really combat, and like it's just those kinds of things get me thinking, oh, you really can make a D&D style module out of anything as long as you know how to create a set of rules and structure and like story. And I think it's a really versatile medium that's almost limitless. Before we wrap up, I wanted to ask about where the best place people can find the things that you do, how they can get their hands on Neverland, and the best ways to find you on the internet and interact with all the awesome stuff you do.
Oh, yeah. I now finally have an easy answer to that question, which I did not for many other interviews. So you can just go to superdylan.com, which is Super Dylan. If the only flaw is that I spell Super Dylan weirdly, so it's SuperDillin.com. And when you go to superdylan.com, you will see places where you can watch previous streams. You can find all the podcasts that I am involved with. You can find Neverland. You can watch the play tests from Neverland if that's something you're curious about. You can buy it. You can buy merch related to it. You can read random things I'm thinking about, which I've included on there. And you can see what's upcoming. So you'll see streams that I'm going to be on, applications for games that I am hosting. And you'll be seeing hopefully soon more applications for the COGS Expo, which is the convention I work for. Obviously 2020 we are on hiatus, but soon we'll be posting stuff for 2021. So you can find everything there.
Awesome. Excellent. Before I let you go and before I have you do our sign off, I want to ask if you could have as a GM, if you could have a D&D group of celebrities, pop culture figures, musicians, who would be your ideal 4 players to have to play D&D with?
Oh my God. Okay. Any celebrities?
Anybody.
Sky's the limit. Sky is the limit. Okay. Elijah Wood.
Okay.
I just want to see if he's real. I kind of don't think he is. But Elijah Wood, Satine Phoenix. Satine Phoenix is a person who's like a deep fave of mine. You said 4 people. Oh my gosh, this is so difficult.
Asking the hard-hitting questions here.
You really are. All right, hang on. Let me focus. Let me focus and think. I mean, what's better than Elijah Wood on playing D&D?
That's fair.
Jim Carrey. I would love to see that.
That would be amazing, yeah.
I would love to see that. And okay. Can I add one more? Because
sure, you can have a 5 party.
Because I can't pick one of the Wayans brothers, but I would love to play with both of them. There's amazing. No picking there.
Okay.
Excellent. You can't break that duo up. Yeah, that would be my perfect table. I'm sure if I thought about this a little bit harder, I might yell at myself later in the middle of the night that I changed my mind and I have a different lineup. But that sounds pretty good to me.
That sounds pretty good to me, too. Don't worry. You can just email me later if you make a change. I'll add an addendum.
Oh, okay, good.
Well, Diana, this was great. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. This has been an absolute pleasure. It's been great to get to know you over the internet, and I'm so excited for all of the stuff that you're working on. I'm going to ask you one other favor. We have a saying on the show, which is music is life and life is good. It's this idea that if you're creating art of any kind, that life will always be okay, even when it's not. So if you could just close out the show by saying those words, we will wrap this up.
Okay, and I am saying that music is life and life is good. I love that.
That's it for this episode of Crash Chords Autographs. Our theme music is by Michael Kill. Our logo was designed by Case Aiken and Joey Amons. If you liked the show, please rate and review us on iTunes and Facebook. You'll help us reach more listeners. Questions, comments, or guest recommendations? Email matt.storm@crashchords.com or hit us up on Twitter @CrashChordsWeb. Thanks for listening.
Hi, this is Victor Devon, and I am the host of We Burlesque, the podcast. Every Monday, I talk to fabulous denizens of nightlife, including burlesque performers, both seasoned and new to the form, drag performers, performance artists, DJs, and artists who make up their respective scenes. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and more. Please visit weburlesque.com to check out episode recaps and see all the formats available. And remember that music is life. Life is good.
Bananarama?
Okay, all right.
A band?
Yeah.
Yes. As a pastor's kid growing up in the 90s, there was a lot of mainstream entertainment that I was sheltered from.
Stephen Root, he does one of the voices.
Okay.
You know him from News Radio.
Do I?
You know him from Office Space.
Do I?
You know...
Most things, really. So, now that I am an independent and out queer 30-something, I'm finally asking my friends to teach me about all the stuff I missed out on. Wait, Raffi did Beatles covers?
Yes, he did.
My mind is blown.
He did Octopus's Garden. And,
Yeah, I remember Octopus's Garden.
no.
I didn't know that wasn't a Raffi original until just now. The Re-Education of Hazel Tart. Subscribe now.
Kevin Costner. He was so foxy.
I know the name, I don't know the face. I cannot. What is Kevin Costner? Can you just show me a picture of Kevin Costner's face, please?
Think of the guy,
This is hurting
not
my head.
Cheech Marin, but think of the other guy in Tin Cup.
I've never seen that.